Yes, well, yeah, I think we're live streaming. Okay, go ahead.
Great.
John? Oh, Pat, do you have something to say first? Oh, okay.
Good morning, everyone. If you haven't already done it, your cell phones are on silent mode, correct? Thank you for coming to today's briefing. It's a follow-up to the release we issued last Friday regarding GPA receiving advice that in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Department of Justice, on behalf of the United States Environmental Protection Agency, formally filed a consent decree with GPA in court. In case you didn't know, this is live streaming to the public on YouTube channel, lowercase Guam space CCU. Today you'll hear some statements from Mr. Beneventi, our General Manager, and our Consolidated Commission on Utilities Chairman, Mr. Duenas. Question and answers can follow by Mr. Beneventi and Mr. Duenas. And please speak up a little bit or speak directly into the microphone. Let's begin. Mr. Beneventi.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, for being here this morning. US EPA promulgated new emission requirements under the Clean Air Act several years ago, which required our 8 steam and slow-speed diesel power generators to be provided with emission controls. However, it was not economically feasible to install very expensive emission controls on our units, and which would have resulted in massive rate increases for our ratepayers. GPA decided it was in our best interest to construct a new power plant and to retire the existing units. As I've been reporting to the community for many years, GPA has been faced with potential penalties by US EPA in the hundreds of millions. However, since 2012, GPA worked with US EPA to enter into a consent decree which delineated a compliance plan acceptable to the parties and which in turn would waive the enormous penalties. The compliance requirement in the consent decree was negotiated by the parties over these past several years. Although challenging, the plan is achievable, and GPA intends to complete the intent of the consent decree and be relieved of it within the next 4 years. The specific requirements within the consent decree will provide the island community with reliable power, clean air, and green energy. The new power plan, coupled with renewable energy, will allow GPA to achieve compliance in an affordable manner. The CCU and PUC determined it was in the ratepayers' best interest and approved last year GPA entering into a consent decree with US EPA. The filing made by US EPA last week is the beginning of the formal process towards a finalization of the agreement. There is now a 30-day public comment period, after which a federal court judge would approve, make changes, or approve the consent decree. The resulting impact of all this is the supply of reliable power from new generating units and at reduced costs. The end result is lower bills for ratepayers. And with that, I'd like to ask the chairman to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I think the highlights that John went through are very good. One of the things I think that's very important is to acknowledge that a lot of these occurrences are because GPA does a lot of planning. And so it's not a simple thing of just meeting certain requirements of US EPA, but it's in looking in when you're meeting those requirements, what else can you do to improve the utility, to improve the service to the customers out there that we have, and to find a way to have not just cleaner environment, but to find a way to maybe cut costs and bring the power bill down. We believe that this plan, the CCU adopted everything that management came up with because we believe this plan does accomplish that. The key is to build generation, repower generation, that will work well with renewable energy. And that's what we've always said. The Ukudu power plant that we're now in the process of constructing with our partner, KEPCO, is there to allow more renewable energy into the system, okay? And that's I must make a distinction though, because it's not there to take care of the intermittency of solar power. There's a big distinction. If you ever remember, we used to show that duck curve, highlight that duck curve. And so what it says is more renewables can get into the system because of that power plant. We still have a problem with intermittency. That is addressed by energy storage units people know them commonly as batteries. So all of this put together is a going forward way of improving the environment on Guam, improving our reliability, improving our service to the customer, and finding a way to hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years, when all of these things come together, lower the bill to our customer. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, could you just elaborate on when you say that you found it more preferable not to make the improvements that the EPA wanted and instead build a new power plant?
Yeah, our power plants are basically about 22 years and above. Our oldest power plant, which this is a subsequent, Campus 1 and 2, about 44 years old. The useful life, actually, they're past the useful life. So therefore, to put very expensive, in the hundreds of millions of dollars of emission controls, which require high operating costs and is not feasible to do. So therefore, we did not resist the effort of coming to an agreement for compliance, but we received we couldn't achieve anything reasonable for the island. So it took this many years to work out this process. So the new power plant is going to be with us for another 40, 50 years. The new power plant is going to allow us to consume 1 million barrels or about 42 million gallons of oil less a year. It's going to, although it's more expensive fuel, it's cleaner, and we can afford it by consuming less. The new power plant is going to allow us to work with renewables, keep on adding renewables, because the new plant will be the reliability. As I've said before, for 1 day of battery storage for the island, you can generate 100% energy, but for 1 day of energy storage, it requires about a 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour increase. For 2 days, that's 15 cents, and you can add up all, it continues to that. I showed you in some of the other presentations. In this past, just 2-3 months ago, in August to September, 11 days straight of rain. That means if you're going to supply energy for the island, you need 11 days of batteries. That's horrendously and very infeasible. No? So again, the new plan is going to give that reliability, work well with renewables, and allow us to work towards the renewable goals of the island. And our next goal is to achieve, we've already provided the contracts to show that by 2022 we'll be at 25% renewable. Our goal now is to work out the plan by this June to go to 50% renewables. So the amount of the emission control requirement would have made it a massive rate increase without an increase in operating efficiency, meaning you're adding all this special equipment into your car engine, but it's not souping up the car engine, it's just taking more energy from it.
Can you give us a status update on the new power plant, as well as other initiatives that GP has to do in order to comply with the
The new power plant is proceeding as planned, and the early process is proceeding with working out the environmental impact assessments, preparing that and preparing for the permitting of all the actions, and then taking that to a financial closing. So all of these things are required before KEPCO can go to the financing institution, which will be this coming summer. No, so everything is moving to that respect. The other aspect of we already awarded 120 megawatts of new solar PV farm, 260 megawatt farm. And in the consent decree, it requires us to put 100 megawatts. So we already have awarded 100, and there's actually 40 more that's in the pipeline right now. That's, of course, before the OPA for addition. So that gives us 140 megawatt by 2022. So again, the different parts of the plan we will be tracking once the appropriate time is there for us. Right now, We have to let KEPCO and GP and the rest of the team work towards the permitting and all the different activities required before we can even begin the breaking of the ground and all of these other aspects. Right now, I'm not sure yet, but it's getting close. But I know, I think I told you sometime around January or February, but I think probably in the next 2 months.
Of 2021.
20,
Yeah.
no, groundbreaking?
Yeah.
Yeah, this year, the next 2 months, groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they have to do all the permits first, no? That's why. The $400,000 will be paid immediately after the court signs the judge. As I mentioned just earlier, there's a process now. They just began with the filing. There's a 30-day public period, after which the judge decides and makes the order. Once that's done, then it triggers the payment. And we have the $400,000 to pay for that. It's not gonna, yes, that's something that's,
No impact on rates. There'll be no impact rates, and I can't stress that enough. The filing with the court is just, it's the formal part. After the 30-day period, the judge signs off. Once the judge signs off, then the agreement is binding on the parties. Right now, the agreement is not yet finalized or binding. But once the judge signs off, that's when the agreement is binding. At that point, the agreement calls for us to pay $400,000. We will write that check and pay that.
And a lot of the items in the compliance schedule are on the way already. The storage tanks, the pipelines, all are being worked on today. So it'll be, once that is finalized, then we'll start our reporting process, which again will be public at that time. That's what I mentioned within 4 years. Well, yes. Remember, the construction of the new power plant is 3 years, and so we'll be done by the end of 2022, and then we will work to clear up everything by the end of 2023 at the latest, so that this doesn't become a long-term solid waste or other aspects. No?
Doesn't the consent decree require that the power plant open in October 2023?
That's correct.
Are you on track for that?
That's our target right now. Whether we are or not, that's our target. No, but then there are some penalties, and within there's also a penalty requirement under the KEPCO contract. And this is why I'm saying it's strict performance requirement. For the first 2 months after October 2022, the penalties mirror the US EPA penalties that we have to pay if we don't meet that date. Then beginning the third month, the penalty is $240,000 a day. A day. So you can see how much of an incentive they have to finish this. Yeah, that's in the contract.
Yeah, I'd like to highlight the fact, I don't think people fully realize or appreciate the fact that the management of GPA is very qualified, and they're really good people. Besides John, he's got a staff behind him. And
Strong
so
staff.
they've gone through this with a fine-tooth comb. That's why we're very confident that we will be able to do this. We wouldn't do this, and EPA is confident we're going to be able to do this. They know what we're doing. So they're very confident. When you talk about we're slipping a day or two. We told the court maybe some delays, weather, whatever. And so I'm just saying that if the court and EPA are reasonable, what they most want to see is the effort that you're making to accomplish what you agreed to. If they believe that you are accomplishing what you agreed to, they are reasonable people. What they don't like is if you don't accomplish what you agreed to. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, that is what they go after.
It is in our best interest for our ratepayers and to complete this as scheduled. And again, like the chairman said, there are some opportunities or to, for reasonableness. We will want to get this power plant completed because we need it, no? As I have mentioned many times, as we have rolled towards the new power plant, that the next 3 years is going to be challenging. But we're going to do our best to make sure everything continues well. But we do need that power plant because, again, the age of the equipment. So when that comes, and then secondly, renewables are in the way, and we want the new power plant so that we can achieve more and more and start looking at stable costs, because the renewables costs now are going to be right in parity with the power plant costs. The issue now becomes stability of fuel rate, of rate of cost for the ratepayers. And how do you stabilize that rate? By transferring fluctuating fuel oil costs to more stable renewable costs. And hedging, that will be the hedge of the future. So it's in our best interest to get this done as soon as we can. Not any more beyond that, but there are reasonableness for whatever can be expected. Force majeure, we have a typhoon here. There's no way that they can work out there. There might be damages that results in delays. All of those are part of the consent decree and can be considered. No? So it's a process and a relationship between US EPA and ourselves, and working that out before it even has to go to the court again for decisions and as mentioned. But like the chairman said, there's opportunities to make it, and again, it was a challenging agreement, but it's achievable and in our best interest to get it done as soon as we can. Question? It's in our cash flow.
Are you asking why did EPA agree? Agree? It's a negotiation. I think, to be honest with you, I give a lot of credit to John and his team. It's the fact that if EPA sees you're going down the road where they want you to go, and let me back up for a minute. We want a cleaner environment. The CCU and GPA and GWA, we want a cleaner environment. We're not doing a lot of these things just because EPA wants to do it. And that's what EPA likes. They see us being aggressive and trying to get ahead of the curve. GPA and GWA are so far ahead of the curve of any other water or wastewater or electric utility in the whole Pacific Basin, including Hawaii. I'll put us up, and we're better off than they are. Okay? We have a lot to be proud of. We have good management. So, we are better, and EPA sees that. Let me put it this way. The philosophy is, why would they want to fine us and we have less money to do what they want us to do? If they allow us to pay a small fine and allow us to take our money and put it into what they want us to do so we can have a cleaner environment and better serve our customers, that's what they'd rather do. They only come out with the heavy fines when you're not doing what you should be doing. So if there are any heavy fines out there, that's when you can say, hey.
So the team worked real hard to minimize that number down to one, because that number that we pay goes into the federal coffer. It doesn't come back in any way to, unless through other means, right? But the other things within the consent decree, the new power plan, the renewables, that all comes to the benefit of the ratepayers and the benefit of US EPA for clean environment. So through all that process of negotiating and like the chairman said, the good efforts, efforts moving forward. For many years, this issue has been always on the agenda of anything happening. What is EPA going to do? We're working with them, right? So, and that's what, about 7, 8 years. So again, it ended up with something that that was actually good for all the parties, and that's why, and even the 400,000, you know, the check is actually, it could be prepared today and we'll write them off. You know, that's a great consolation to the potential penalties that was building up on a day-to-day basis. Question? Yes, we've been working on that plan for the past 2 years. And again, we've been working on, again, there's a lot. If you may have recalled, GPA has mentioned many times that 60% of the workforce is eligible for retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. So that provided us with some opportunity to right-size our organization. Another thing that you may not have known yet, but just in the past 4 years, we went from 512 employees to today 455. And can you imagine when we go to the new power plant, you're going to drop that to below 400. So the whole organization of GPA is going to be running on less than about 400 personnel in the future. So we've been right-sizing the whole company. So again, our plan is to really figure out different alternatives today so that we don't keep hiring people that we won't have a job at the end. And we're doing cross-training, apprenticeship program, internships, all of those different things. A more formal, I know the CCO has asked us for that plan, and I mentioned to him that that plan will really come to them coming by this summer. And part of it is because we are going to retire other plans. No? So we're going to have a lot of capacity, so we're looking how do we right-size the company. Yeah.
I just add one thing. Technology should always improve the situation you're in. But technology in the electric utility business is really disruptive with renewable energy. And it brought about great opportunities for us to cut costs, to lower the amount of labor we need, because the plant we're building at Okadu, for example, requires a lot less labor. You know, it's more computerized, it's a different system than what we have. So all these things are coming about, and that's why we're able to say we hope to really lower the power bill to our ratepayers.
So would these changes have happened without the lawsuit?
Yes, I would tell you yes, because actually I give credit again to John's team. John's GPA started the integrated resource plan back in 2008. And so a lot of these things that were the fruits of the labor now are coming true are through that process of continually working on the integrated resource plan. And you know, it's not, we didn't just come to the EPA and say, okay, here's the plan. We've been saying, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. John and his team have been doing that for years. So, you know, I give the people at GPA a lot of credit. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a cleaner environment and more reliable service, and we believe we're going to be able to cut the bill. That's our goal.
Yeah. And remember, the first solar PV plan of GPA came on the line in 2015. So it's even, you know, we're working first on the, so even by then, we're already seeing that we're going to, you know, and the aids of the plan, we're already planning on how do we get to lower costs and stabilize costs, because that's the biggest thing. We've had lower costs in the past where oil drops real low, right? Like the 8.8 cents in 2016. But then what happened again? Jump right up. So the key here is lower and stabilize costs through the combination of the new power plant, which is extremely reliable and efficient, reducing almost 42 million gallons of oil a year, plus the lower cost contracts from renewables that are at 1% escalator. That's the key. It only escalate 1% over the next 20 years. That whole combination together and more renewables based on that philosophy will bring us stabilized costs. No? That's the whole plan.
You know,
So,
if I could just
that's
add.
what we offered That's what we offered and showed to US EPA that it was our intention in the first place to really get to lower costs, which would have cleaned the air. And, and it's really causes a major impact to the community of Guam, and hence we ending up with a lower penalty, no?
And I'd like to just add that that was a very good question, because it leads me to remind you folks that instead of waiting until the power plants fell apart, we knew they were on their way out. So we're planning for their exit. It would be very irresponsible if we just did nothing and waited for them to crash. So I give great credit again to GPA and the leadership of the CCU. This is a vision of the CCU. We're not going to wait until the thing falls apart and then we're rushing to try and fix it. This is a plan, and the plan is working. It's going to get better and better. Okay?
Question?
How can people comment on the consent decree?
I think you can get on the website of the
U.S. Department of Justice website, there's a section here for the comments.
What's the date?
I beg your pardon?
The date, the deadline.
30 days from when it was.
I think it was filed with the court yesterday?
Thursday.
Thursday. Thursday.
Yeah. I think all the consent decree, everything is on there. And again, the process is no longer ours. The process is with the
It's with the court.
US EPA going through the court process. And I've signed my documents. Everything is now at the end. It's up to the process and the federal judge.
Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.